Hello, my friends. John Wilson here. I'm going to do something fun today. I'm going to go ahead and set up a demo order where I can show you the workflow for designing dentures inside of 3Shape in the newest module and show some of the fun features and some of the ways to streamline and understand how understanding dentures is such a powerful aspect in a lot of different aspects of dental technology. It's going to transcend not just removable, but you can bring in some very similar concepts to All-on-X as well. I thought it would be fun to be able to highlight some of that. So let's go ahead and open up a demo case and add some assets to it. So let's go ahead and modify the order, and I can just show you rather quickly how it's set up. So essentially, it's set up as milled denture teeth that I'm going to design and mill. It's going to design pockets, and it's going to design an oversized milling strategy for me as well as producing a monoblock for me. So in case I want to do a try-in instead of just a 2-appointment style denture. So you can see it rather quickly here. It's going to be set up for a lab scan case. But you can very easily use a digital scan as well in importing this as a digital impression. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and import the scans here, and we'll get rolling really quickly. So I'm going to right-click the order and import the scan. I'm going to go to my asset folder here, and I'm going to bring in the upper model. And then I'm going to bring in the opposing model or the lower model here. And then I'm going to bring in a digital bite rim that is managed for this particular case. And if I double click on here on the corner here, it'll bring up the 3D preview window, and we'll see that my assets are brought together. And I have a good digital starting point, what I call my canvas. This is my canvas. I'm going to go ahead and be able to utilize all of this information to be able to put together a good proposal to my client, to be able to establish that we are in the same position, make sure that our aesthetics, phonetics, and function are going to be managed based upon this information. This is our starting point. So now let's go ahead and double click the case and start to design this case. It's going to be brought into the newest version of 3Shape. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to be showing this, but you know what? I very rarely do not follow the rules. So if I'm breaking the rules, I apologize, guys. So let's start out here and let's look at our occlusal plane. And this is what it's going to start with, where we're going to do here. So it's going to ask us to do a number of ways. We're going to just do 3 points here. And I'm going to pick it along this side. And we're going to bring this little scale in. And I'm going to bring out the centrals to the outside edge of that rim. And if I shine this out and take it down and I look from the lingual aspect, thank you, my friends at Vita, for providing these wonderful study models for us to be able to practice our craft on. Let's go ahead and just set this up. And I do this very specifically, guys. So there are some hard and fast rules that, you know, many techs will break. But if we have this vertical dimension, if we look at where the retromolar pads are in relation to the hemular notches, we're going to be able to see rather clearly where our terminal tooth is going to fit into this occlusion. So often when we're looking at this type of stuff, we're just looking, well, I got to get some centrals in here and figure out where it's go. But if we know that my wax rims or our audition in this to generate our centric relation and our vertical dimension of occlusion, the VDO, this is my starting point here. And while these digital rims are not scribed, it's giving me a very easy way to use the incisive papilla and all 3 of these other reference points for the retromolar pads, hemular notches, to be able to get my plane of occlusion and occlusal plane set up in this manner. So now let's go ahead and click forward. We're going to jump into the what we call the characteristic points. I'm going to go ahead and shadow out the rim here, and it's going to be straightforward. We're going to ask for where the tuberosity is. We're going to ask where the incisive papilla is at, and we're asked for the second aspect. We're also going to ask where the canine reference point is on either side, and this is the most simplistic way to put this model together. Now it's going to ask for the retromolar center, and the facial and the lingual. Come back to the central ridge point as well, and we're going to come back and do the same thing on the opposite side. And come down and put our canines in. So this is a perfect representation of what we'd like to get to in this particular point. I'm going to kick forward. Now, rather quickly in here, we need to define the borders on this. And this is a part that most people get lost on a little bit because if you don't know what the peripheral roll is, we don't know what the quality of the impression is, very often dentures will become overextended and, we lose the suction that we can get by having a border that is improper. So I'm going to just really quickly go ahead and mark my borders here. And remember, you can always come back and refine this. So I'm just going to come around here and I'm going to try to utilize this outside edge of the peripheral roll. I'm going right over the muscle trimmed areas as well. And I'm going to come right around this outside edge real quick. And we're going to mark this margin. And I can always refine it later as we go forward on the case. But very quickly, I run around the arch form. And I'm going to go ahead and connect it. And then just smooth it out a little bit in a few areas here. And just make sure that the roll is managed appropriately and it's not super overextended anywhere. This is a rather nice impression. This is ideal in a lot of ways. It gives us a lot of really good landmarks to be able to learn from. If you're just on your journey doing dentures, to learn how to do dentures, there's a lot of things that go involved to make the best quality dentures as far as stability is concerned, and that always starts with our foundation or our canvas. So we don't have to get too perfect on this, but I'm going to go ahead and just do what I normally do here. We'll jump forward and do the same thing on the lower jaw boundary. Again, I'm going to go ahead and click the outside edge and come around. Really make sure we're coming around that retromolar pad area, come around the inside. And you can see this width here is going to be tremendous. There's no need for me to come all the way out to the outside edge. I'm going to come down in the floor of the mouth here, and come up around the retromolar pad again, come around. And this outside flange area as well is really, really powerful to stabilize a lower denture based upon the extension. So again, remember, we can always play catch up to change the extension as we move forward because this is just marking our boundaries. It's not perfect. It's not going to be exactly where it's going to go at this point, and you're going to see that how 3Shape will actually move this boundary in as we move forward. So again, let's just go ahead and get this thing squared up here, idealize some things, and look at where we're starting at here and see if we can just fix up a couple little things here real quick. All right, so we're going to do a one and done style aspect. I'm going to be able to talk over this and just share a little bit. If I make a mistake or I stumble or if I say the wrong thing, just recognize I'm not editing this. This is straightforward. So now we got to set our block out or our path of insertion for this case. You can see very quickly on the right side over here, we have a heat map that's going to show us the degree of undercut to it. Now, when we're doing cases for all on X, and I'm going to do a wax up for that, well, I don't have to worry about the block out, but on a denture where I need to mill the undercut as close as possible, I need to more or less survey this in a very specific manner. So let's go ahead and change the block out angle from none to 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a visual on my direct down from the occlusal aspect to see where the most advantageous draw would be based on surveying. So I'm going to go ahead and set it from view at this particular point. And now you can see I nearly eliminated all my undercut that was going to be blocked out really heavily, and this is a really good representation. You're going to see some parts on the palatal rugae here that is going to be blocked out, but we can go ahead and smooth that. So let's go ahead and say next on this, and we're going to click it forward, and we're going to see where the wax has been blocked out in this area. And you can come over to this slider and you can thicken it up, and then you can see really clearly what's going to happen here. So on a denture such as this, we could be really, really safe to just smooth this stuff out so that we don't have a big blocked out area here. If you want to take it away, you can take it away. It's literally not going to affect anything. This outside edge for the undercut, you know that's not going to be, and there's a lip there. So this part's just going to smooth that border. So what I like to do is I always use this smooth tool on the outside edge. Just come around really quick, and that's going to seal off any angry triangle in the mesh, and it's going to make a much nicer peripheral roll for us. All right. Let's go ahead and go forward and do the same thing on the mandibular arch. So rather quickly here, we can see we have a little bit of yellow, and you can see that the yellow is from 0 millimeters to 1 millimeters of block out. Well, we know back here in this area here, there's going to be some undercut to get this to draw. And, you know, if I really wanted to get tricky and come from this direction here, it's still going to have this. So let's just do it for fun. Just on this area, I'll come on this viewpoint and set from view. And you can see it's much the same. It's not going to matter. So I'm just going to reset it, leave it as is. I'm going to change from none to block out angle 3. So those 3 degrees right there is going to help us. Let's go ahead and preview it real quick. And again, as I mentioned, when I'm doing the wax trimming on this, I'm going to go ahead and I know that I'm going to be able to get it over this area just a little bit. I'll just thin it out a little bit, smooth it down. This side, same thing. Thin it out a little bit, smooth it down. I don't want to lose all of this area of retention. This part over here, I'm going to smooth it as I told you before. Same principle. I want to come out through that outside edge. And again, the lip in that area is not where it's really sealing. It's down in the peripheral roll that is the most important. This just allows the border to be adapted quicker in the algorithm that's used in the gingivator as we move forward. All right, so now we have our casts surveyed, mounted. We have our points here, and now it's the fun part where we get to actually bring some teeth into here. So in the Smile Composer, we can do a lot of things. There's a lot of different libraries that we can use for all of this stuff. All of these libraries have pros and cons to it based on what you're doing. The Ivoclar libraries that I use on a daily basis are some really powerful ones, but I'm going to represent Dr. Alexander Popov. He has shared some really great libraries with me for dentures, and I think you're going to love them as well. So let's have some fun and show it. And it's always fun when 3Shape throws an error up in the middle. So let's go ahead and hope this doesn't kill it completely. It looks like I might get lucky here. So let's go ahead and go to Dr. Popov's library here. And let's go ahead and just choose the natural style denture here first. And let's see how it applies and where it brings us in just as it is. Now, again, when a library is optimized, meaning that it is set for the proper function, and you have your markings on your cast done properly, it will bring a proposal in that's very close. It's not always going to be perfect, but it's going to be very close. And some of the things that I do when I have very good contoured rims is I'm just going to eliminate the models completely. All right. And now I'm just going to bring this bite rim in here. That's going to give me some really good information. Now, if we look at this full complement of teeth, and very often when I'm doing full dentures, I will never do a 1/28. I'll either eliminate a bi or eliminate the second molar, depending on what we have to work with on this. So in this particular case, it's going to be more advantageous if I go ahead and remove the second molar. And a lot of people, when they're doing these types of things, they will just leave that to the end. Well, I always start with this. If I know that I'm going to move these teeth and eliminate a molar, I'll just go right over here, right away click on the molar and remove all second molars. Really quick. Boom. It's out of there. Now I'm going to go back to this icon here, and I'm going to volumetrically move this. Where you get in big trouble on these types of cases, guys, is when you are going to try to move the teeth individually. That makes no sense in a lot of manners, and you're going to see why. Let's move this template here, close this down, and now my view is really nice for this aspect of it. And this is when I start with looking at where my lower arch form is relative to my bite rim. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the upper teeth. And I'm going to look at my relation to the crest of the ridge based on Pound's triangle here and come up with a path for what I'm going to do to make this look a little bit nicer. So even though I have the upper teeth shadowed out, they are following this, this movement based upon this information. Now remember, this rim did not have a midline marked, but we have a couple ideal circumstances here. We have a really pronounced frenum here, and we can see the incisive papilla rather nicely here to know that we're probably in the right ballpark. We could probably shift this just a little bit here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that rim back in. And I'm going to take a look at my occlusal plane based upon the proposed placement of these teeth. Now remember, when you look at something like this, these digital rims have been fabricated to allow for the doctor to take some bite registration in between them to lock it together so that we can easily scan it back into the computer, or we can digitally align as well. So in this relation, we know that that's going to be our incisal edge delimiter. This is where we want to set that central incisal edge. So I'm going to start with that as well. So now, even though I have only one arch shown, I'm still looking for that information. So I'm just going to bring it down real quick. I'm not going to do too much to it. And now let's start to refine the posteriors in relation to the arch form to get the best function, fit, and phonetics for this case. Really quickly, we don't have to spend a tremendous amount of time. We're almost in the ballpark right here. I'm going to slide this over ever so slightly. I'm going to rotate this around. And remember, the opposing is following this perfectly at this point. All right? That's pretty nice to be able to get to this position. A couple really powerful tools to put in your arsenal is well, the height of the retromolar pad in relation to the terminal tooth that's going to be there. Generally, a safe bet is 3/4 of the height of the retromolar pad is going to be able to do that. We're going to try to set the teeth on the crest of the ridge as much as possible. And then we're going to go ahead and utilize our flanges on our dentures to support these teeth in a manner that is going to force the bolus of food over the table of the actual teeth. All of these little things is no different for all on X, except for the fact that now we have it implanted and retained and supported rather than a muco-style denture here. All right, so let's go ahead and bring these teeth back in here. I'm not spending too much time here. I'm just going to go ahead and do a little demo for you. Now let's go ahead and just snap this forward here. Take a look at our arch. Let's go ahead and look at this real quick. And I think we could probably kick in these posteriors just a smidge. So let's do that. Let's get rid of this. And let's go over to my pivot tool. And generally what I do, guys, is I do a symmetric design. So I'll click on this. And then if you look at my posteriors, so I grab that last molar and I pull it in just a little bit, it's going to rotate that part in. That looks pretty good. Let's take a look at what we got going on here. So a lot of times in these libraries, to get the function just right, I leave these alone and then I'll go work the virtual articulator as well. All right, so let's go ahead and slap it on the virtual articulator here, and let's take a look at what's going to happen. Let's go ahead and put it into function. I always shadow out this, and I will take one arch away, and I will just look at this upper arch to see what the heck is going on. So you can see on our lateral, and we're going to see on our protrusive, it's got some heavy contacts, but for the most part, it's ideal. I mean, it's dialed in based on how this library is arranged. You don't have to really work this that much if you know you're using optimized libraries like this. All right? Let's go ahead and jump forward in this, and let's just show you how fast and easy it is to design the gingiva on this stuff. It's going to bring the contact points in this area as well. I'm going to close out the virtual articulator. And then if we look at the gingival profile and what we have to deal with, we have several different styles. We have delicate, we have natural, we have intense, and I think there's a custom one where you can set up your own values on what you'd like it to do. I found that it's very nice to use this average value, this neutral value, and for maxillary arch, I always start about 2.5 millimeters. I leave the relief at 10, and the drill radius can be anywhere from 80 down to 65 for the best results. Okay, this is the general settings that are coming in on this. So I'm going to go ahead and just preview this real quick. We're going to watch how this brings in the proposal without having to do too much to it. When you don't move teeth around, when the contact points of the library optimize, when you're volumetrically changing all the teeth at one time, it's going to be rather easy for the gingival preview that is going to be produced in this fashion to be rather good. You're going to see rather quickly how this is going to produce this. It takes a little bit of time for this aspect, but I mean, I haven't touched this at all, and it's pretty decent. You know, I'm going to bullet up. I'm going to show you what I do here, but let's go ahead and click forward and say that that's okay. And we're going to do the same thing for the lower. And now, you know, we can idealize exactly where my extension is going to be. We know that this has been waxed out a little bit here. I just really like to cover the retromolar pads as much as possible. It's very stable for us to be able to do this. I'll bring this border up here for the lingual frenum. And again, all of this can be morphed after the fact, but I like to be able to get this part as close as possible in the initial proposal, so I don't have to do too much to it. All right, let's go ahead and do a little bit different on this one. So I do just a little thicker on the bottom. I do 2.75 to 3 millimeters in thickness. And again, I use the same gingival aesthetics, that natural. And let's go ahead and preview this real quick as well. And you're going to see it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time to be able to do something that is going to function quite well. But it's really predicated on the fact that you are going to get good digital information from your clients. You know, if you're not getting a good scan, if they can't acquire a good interoral scan, you know, there's nothing to say that they can't take an alginate and then scan the alginate to send to you as well. All of those things are super powerful ways to be able to overcome some of the challenges. So again, the proposal for both of these arches, without doing anything to it, is somewhat close. You're going to see how fast it's going to be able to finish this case up. All right, so let's talk about the connectors and what the connectors are for. Well, sometimes when we're doing a monoblock or we're going to pocket things out, we need the connectors to join our aspect of this. Inside the control panel, you can set these numbers to be whatever you want, you know, within reason. The lowest values are 70, 70, 60, and that's what I use generally for everything. I'm just going to bring these numbers down really quickly, and we're going to go ahead and create the actual connector here, and you're going to see what it does. So all of these things are going to be based upon how these teeth are positioned and why we do these things. So let's go ahead and just preview this real quick and look at how it's going to make the connectors on here. So you can see sometimes it wipes out the anatomy just a little bit on these particular areas, but for the most part, anything that's below this green line is going to be covered by the gingiva, and you're not going to see that. But to sharpen this stuff up, we can do that in the sculpt anatomy stage, and that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and move forward. And in the sculpt anatomy phase, I'm going to turn off that block out real quick, and then I will come in here really quick with my reduce tool here, and I'll make the radius to be inside of our line angles here, and then I come back and I just pull it straight through like this. Okay? Just really quickly, straight through. Try not to deviate left or right. Same thing. Look, lay that circle like this and come straight back through. And just do that for the 6 anteriors, where, you know, the aesthetic zone matters the most. All right. All right, we're going to come back through this last joint here, and I think I got one over here on the opposite side. And that looks okay. Now what I do as just a safety factor is because we're going to do a Boolean separation inside the software, is I'll come and use the smooth tool and I'll just come through and smooth out these little pissed off triangles that are here, because it's going to allow us to have a better chance of it not erroring out as we move forward. Once you work with 3Shape enough, with most programs, and you put the reps in, you're going to learn rather quickly what it likes and what it doesn't like. So is that perfect? No, but you're going to see what I can do to make it perfect as we move forward. So again, can be really picky here. Less power just to get things ideal, and you can put your own flavor into these libraries as well, which I regularly do. I know that you've seen my work, but for this video, we're just going to go really quickly here. Okay, so again, now we have to look at what's going on with this this gingival aspect of it. But before, I kind of jumped one step here. You can use the heat map here to do some really cool things. I'm not going to show it all, but I know most of you guys will have not seen this because this is in the beta. So that's just a little sneak preview. It has some cool features for us. But, I always will go ahead and use the little cheat sheet over here just to validate that the library didn't have any inclusions on it. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick little subtraction here. And of course, it didn't cut anything because the library was perfect, and I never moved an individual tooth from its original library position. All right, so now when I go forward to the denture base selection, I'm going to turn the teeth off here. And really quickly, the most important part on these things is to have this stuff not having these jags on it. So I'm going to come in here real quick. I'm just going to smooth it out and get rid of these little protrusions that are coming up really quickly. And just look at where we're at on this aspect of it. Now, again, if you remember, this outside edge was to the outside of that model. You can see a really nice peripheral roll following all of that muscle trim there. So I don't want to lose that aspect of it, but this outside edge is rather easy. Don't hit the allow sculpting yet. Just come on this outside edge, try to radius this thing a little bit. And once it gets to a point where you can't do anything more, that's where you have to be really careful if you unclick that button. And I'll show you why. So if you go ahead and allow this and you wanted to sculpt on this corner to move it away, if the ring is too much and it hits here, well, what's this doing? It's just distorting the internal here. So we don't want that, of course. So I'm going to come up here rather quickly and easy, and I'm just not going to let the ring goes over the corner here, okay? That circle is going to be on that outside edge. And again, I'm not doing anything but just smoothing that transition. The inside peripheral roll is not being altered at this point. I'm just modifying that little ledge that's there, coming around to be able to maintain the precision of the fit of this denture based on how we acquired that data. Now, this may have been a, old school green stick, border molded, compounded, very fancy impression, but, again, we all know that this is a sample demo model. So anyhow, the principle still is the same. We don't want to disturb that area at all. All right, so I did some quick smoothing here. And now how do we make this look more natural? The biggest thing with tissue is, the free gingival margin here for the gingiva just not need to be as pronounced as these things. So you could actually use the gingivator to create what I call the more delicate aspect of it. Now, what we will need, and what I like to do on these things, is I like to look at our concavities here and see where they're going to be problematic for food impaction. So this little circle tool, the morph tool, the tweezers as I call it, allows you to pull in the direction that you want it to go. And you can then be really certain that you're not disturbing the inside of this aspect of it. So remember, after you smooth that border, let's just go ahead and I'm going to go right click and Control Z again and remove all that. See how I distorted a little bit on the inside there from when I was using the tweezer tool? So remember, once you do that smooth aspect of it, let's go ahead and take that off, and then it's going to protect the internal. So those little things like that happen often. If you don't remember about that, you always have the undo tool to go back, which is super powerful. But again, all I'm doing is just bulling this up, looking at my lip support on where we're going to do, and then I'll compare it to the actual wax rim as well to make sure that I'm going to be able to give the cosmetic aspect of this case a leg up on this. So all I'm doing is just pulling in those directions, and now I'm going to go ahead and just smooth that stuff again. Again, that fixed border is still there. Don't do too much to it. Less is more a lot of times on these types of cases. And now we have to look at the actual papilla. This is the part that gets messed up so much in most dentures, in my opinion. We know where natural papilla goes. And when you see papilla way up here, what does that tell you? Well, that tells you, one, that either the library wasn't designed right, or the tech doesn't understand what's going on there. So guys, make the papilla not tall. Boost it out in the areas that you're gonna have this natural look to it. Smooth out the rest. Don't do too much. I mean, literally, you can get away with utilizing the features of the software to make a pretty decent proposal. And you can see from the angles that I'm working and why I'm pulling it in the directions that I'm doing, where I'm trying to get the eminence of the root form to come through and why. Well, all of this starts with, years and thousands of dentures done by hand based upon my eye and where we're going to reduce the wax. And over the years in the analog fashion, well, hell, you didn't want to have to block wax it out to carve it all back. I tried to do it in a very additive way so that it was, more efficient. It's no different in digital today. You can see I'm not spending too much time on this stuff, and I'm just getting it to look halfway decent here. All right, so now let's look at the palatal rugae on here and how are we going to design this up to make it look halfway decent. We have, a really nice way to do this. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to just turn the transparency up a little bit, and I'm going to use the additive really quick, and I'm going to just pull down and just really quickly just draw some. Don't spend too much time. Just really look at what's going on here. Not spending too much time on this. Have a decent representation. Now I'm going to put the power down. I'm going to go here and turn it to the reduce, and I'm going to just make some texture. Add a little power. Little more power. And again, all of this little stuff is something you can refine on your own as much time as you want to spend on it. But you can see rather quickly, I didn't do much to it. Let's go ahead and just detail this a little bit more. If you want to use the reduce tool to bullet up, there's a million things you can do with digital. All depends on what your representation in your mind's eye of what a rugae looks like. Okay, it's pretty aggressive. And you could come up here with the smooth tool with the lowest power and just come over it ever so slightly if you wanted to. Tiny little more about power. Okay, not a lot of detail here. And now I'm going to come and put my carving in. Okay, so again, what I do on these cases, just like I was going to carve it with a Hollenbach or half spoon, really quickly, I'm gonna follow those contours. Not spending too much time, still not damaging the papilla. Just trying to make a little bit more contour to it. Canine eminence on that needs to be pretty profound. I like to have that. I think it looks nice. Try to keep the root eminence on the laterals minimal. I have a periodontist friend, Jack Wasserstein, that has really hit that home with me, and I listen to him. He's not going to believe that I gave him a shout out there, but I just did. In any event, you know, we can spend a lot of time on this to make it look super fancy, but that looks pretty damn good. You know, the main thing is, hey, does the CJ of each of these things, does the free gingival margin look halfway decent? When I look at it from this aspect of it, are the teeth supported properly? Does it look nice? You know, in your mind's eye. Pretty good. All right, let's kick it forward. So the coupling mechanism, this is made to make the pockets on these teeth. So let's go ahead and just make the pockets real quick. And as we're waiting for this to calculate, just remember, you know, this is just a quick little tutorial. Hopefully you get a pearl or two in here to be able to see it. Now let's go ahead, and you can see now it's cut the inside of this. Let's go ahead and preview it for our actual pre-manufacturing as well. So you can see what it did to the tooth. It made a 2mm recess here, and now it's going to do a bowline separation from the actual gingival aspect of it. And I always will click on preview for this step, because before it will jump forward, I want to really make sure that we have a really good representation of, you know, that intimate fit from gingiva to the tooth. When we're going to be going ahead and milling these to about 60% of its final state, bonding the two pieces together, and then doing a finish over mill of it in my mill. Again, if you remember, as I mentioned in the setup form of the actual order form, it allows us different manufacturing processes. I'm utilizing Cam5 for oversized milling. It's also going to spit out a monoblock for me to print as a try-in if that's the chosen path. But again, as it's producing these types of pockets on here, this is a big calculation. You know, some of these cases take longer than others. It's a very robust system that I have here. This is the newest beta for next year, and it's produced it. So let's take a look at what it looks like. Let's remove the teeth out of this, remove the monoblock, and you can see how precise that is. It's produced with a drill compensation on this. And if we look at our teeth as well, it's produced perfectly. You know, if we really wanted to learn about what the offset is doing, and you came back and did a 2D cross section here and then reviewed it, well, why digital dentures fit so good is you have this perfect uniform thickness everywhere. Patients love that. The offset is controlled for the drill radius here so perfectly, and it leaves the cement spacer identically to what you want to set it for the best precision without opening or changing the bite on these cases. It's a pretty slick way to see what this software can do for you. I'm just thrilled at the efficiency and what we can do with digital today. And again, you know, this is just one quick way to do a denture. Let's go ahead and click forward, say yes, and we're going to do the same thing with the lower that we just did. Again, the connectors, I do 70, 70, 60. And you can set that in the control panel so you don't have to really do that every single time. So again, if you're not moving it much, you don't have to do too much to these orders. You can see the ugliness of the connectors. I would love 3Shape to eliminate that facial connector or minimize it even more, so that it could be still bulked up to the lingual to be able to do this, but have the ability to maintain the shape. There are some tricks that you can do when you're setting teeth to leave space in between there so the connector comes together, because the burr will never get to these places in this tight format if you're really concerned with this. So let's go ahead and sculpt the anatomy again like we did the first time. I'm going to come back in there with the smooth tool and low value, and I'm going to come from this direction. I put it in this direction. I put it right through the section of it, and I pull straight down. And all I'm doing is just doing a little separation without screwing up the line angles on the teeth, and give me a better path to be able to make the pillow look more natural in here as well. So I tried to pull it in one uniform pull straight back. Doesn't always work perfectly. You can always use that back button. But again, if you can smooth this like I'm doing it, very uniformly, you can even use the tweezers to be able to pull down in that center section as well. I'd like them to make a tool that was ovoid that I could just pull straight down in the center section here to morph this. And again, my path to make good separations is to come through here and make sure that those connectors are smooth. That really keeps the program from erroring most times. So again, really quickly, just coming through and done. All right, so again, I could spend a lot of time on this. Again, I'd like to be able to make sure I'm not having any inclusions from one arch to the other. So I'm going to use the little preset here really quickly, come down and take it away. We'll go into the feature for the thickness on our gingiva. And again, I always start with fixing all of this stuff. Before I try to morph anything, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to smooth over any of these overlaps. What kills these cases on the separation is when the gingiva folds over on itself. And I'm going to share a little trick to be able to find those errors when they happen. You know, if we get one, you know, it would be great for the video. But the truth is, all you have to do is turn the power down and look at the density coming through. If you have an occlusion, if you have something folded over, when you have the transparency on, it always shows. All right, so that's just a quick little tip for you guys to do that. So remember that. So again, I'm going to come back in here and I'm just going to do some quick smoothing on these areas. Don't need to have this real aggressive, but I don't want to add it all back again. So you can see very quick movements with the mouse. And again, now I have to fix that outside edge. So I'm going to allow that sculpting right there, bring the radius down, bring the power down, and just come and just make that transition in the outside edge of it where it rolls into the lip. The peripheral roll is still sealed. I'm not changing any of that. I'm just coming into this border this way, very similar, lingual. And a lot of people will look at this, think that's super overextended, and hell, it might be. But I can tell you, based on my experience, when I'm looking at a really nice captured impression here, I know where I can go with these borders based on this information. That's not to say that you're not going to have to open up the frenum attachments a little bit more post-mill. Happens. So again, I'm just smoothing this outside edge just a little bit. All right. So now let's go ahead and finish this thing up. We're going to go ahead and just bump up the papilla and the free gingival margins just a little bit. But you see, I'm not reinventing and sculpting and sculpting and sculpting. All I'm doing is just highlighting the areas that I know are deficient and smoothing the areas that I think are too pronounced. You know, that's the easiest, simplistic terms to really follow what I'm doing. And remember, don't screw this up like I just did again. Turn off that allow inner when you start to use this tool so you don't come up over the edge. Terminal borders here, Want to make sure that as it goes into a protrusive, it's not going to ramp up on the retromolar pad on the extension to the flange. Again, on a perfect demo study model case like this, it's a rarity for that to happen. So again, it's been my pleasure to show you how I use my workflow for this type of stuff. I don't really need to spend the entire time to bull this up, but I'm going to spend just a couple more minutes to idealize some things just to get a little bit more look to it. Show you what I do for these. Just really quickly, smoothly. Again, less is more in a lot of times on these cases. And there's tons of different features to add stipple in and do all that stuff. I don't like that stuff, but I've made a lot of my own stuff in here to be able to do some fun stuff. You know, even little happy face stipple. So I won't show that. It's kind of fun, but hell, maybe I can do that real quick just for fun, just to see what it's like. So let's go ahead and make it a little bit here, and we'll just do something. And let's go ahead and just produce it with that stipple that I made. Maybe not big enough surface to be able to see it, but we'll see. So you can do some fun stuff in here. There's tons of things that you can do to add, do these things. I have tons of different attachments and fun stuff to do on these things. And again, it's only limited by your imagination and your desire to do something more. You know, the fun part about digital dentistry for me is it's allowed me to be more efficient so that I can use my time in a way to make things better, different than my competition, and more importantly, fun. I'd like to go to work, guys. It's fun for me to do these things and make a difference in this. And while I'm been a denture technician for 40 years now, doing dentistry, a lot of people hate digital dentistry, but more people hate dentures overall, whether it's in analog form or not, because they just don't understand it. It's the most simplistic approach. If you understand how to look at negative space and understand the landmarks and information that is given to us to come up with a very good path to be able to start with your centrals and follow things back, you can get rather close. And I can promise you, the reason I excelled at digital dentistry and all on X was because I've set so many dentures in my career. It helped me to come up with a better understanding of where that tooth should be to be able to function the most effectively. All right. So again, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and click forward here again. And again, what is this? 30 minutes of video, 40 minutes, less than an hour for this. And I'm talking as we're going over all this stuff. I generally can do these cases in under 30 minutes, and to do them to a level that I'm proud of. There's a couple things here that aren't absolutely perfect, but I'm yammering on and not doing my normal things, but it's pretty close. So again, let's finish this sucker up real quick. Let it calculate the final thing, and let's hope it doesn't error out, but I can promise you this. If it does error, I know exactly how to fix it. I've gone through the software enough to understand what it likes and what it doesn't like. And even though that this is a beta of the actual newest 3Shape software, it is so amazingly stable that it's going to be a real benefit for you guys to be upgrading as this comes out to the final release. I'm very, very impressed with what this software can do. And it has solved some really fun challenges. And I kind of was really careful about what I showed, because I'm not sure if they want to do a flagship. And if you're using the Ivoclear workflow, it's going to nest it in the disk and for you. And you can always change that later. But let's just finish this thing up. And here we go. Everything is managed. And again, it's been my pleasure to share a little bit of my passion with you. You know, dentures are really been a telling part of my career, and it's a real reason why I am so comfortable with All in X. And you can see some of the contour shapes and information that I've been able to provide in this little bit of time. And hopefully I will get some good feedback for this little video, and you'll enjoy me doing more of these. All right. So as the week starts, have a wonderful week. Be productive. Try to do something different. Design with purpose, and absolutely replicate that pattern to the best of your ability. Thank you so much, guys. We'll talk to you soon.